I'm Amy Bennett, the Chief of Staff here at Lightspeed Systems. You're going to be hearing a whole lot today from Rob Chambers, our Vice President of Platform Strategy, who has really been digging into this Ohio SB29. We're going to kick this off with just a quick poll of overall, skip question two there. Overall, how are you feeling about SB29 and how it impacts your district practices? All right. So, Rob, we have a good mix of moderately concerned, extremely concerned, and confused. Very few people are not very concerned.
Yeah, I think
As
that
we,
matches with a lot of the calls we've been having. So,
yeah,
and our own internal, going from concerned to confused, back to concerned.
exactly.
So,
Well, hopefully we'll get through the confused and set some concerns at ease through this content today. I'm going to hand it over to you, and then, as I said, everyone who's listening here, use the chat and those questions.
all right, thanks, Amy. So, a quick summary here on the screen. This is all probably something that y'all have seen many times, so I won't read all the bullets. But as we all know, SB29 has new requirements for how we monitor and then notifications that are required as part of that monitoring. And so we're going to dig into that more in the upcoming slides here. So, again, this is probably not new to you, and this isn't this part isn't new to us either. The position of what educational records are and um, the digital data. This doesn't really change a lot for how we have the practices, the security practices and things we have in place, and probably not for you. Most of the schools I've talked with, this part is been the easy part. It doesn't change a lot of our day-to-day practice. Most schools, and I know we were, and other vendors are, already doing kind of the things necessary to comply with these. So again, this part I think is pretty clear. So, but for the information, we'll keep it here on the screen. All right. Now we're starting to get into the meat of things a little bit here. And there is some pretty strong requirements in this bill around uh, the requirements for technology providers. And I would say this is not a bad thing at all. As a technology provider, we don't take this as a negative. We have been uh, very involved with student data privacy, student record processes for a very long time, working only in the education environment. Obviously, this is something that is very meaningful for us, and so this has not changed any of our practices. We are fully compliant with the strict data privacy laws here, but it's good to see. It's good to see that these are being extended across the technology providers and making sure that they're sharing that burden with you because as a school district, you've probably been following these, or very similar requirements to these for a long time. But can be problematic if your vendors were not doing the same thing. So to this, we don't see this as a negative, and it is something. And thank you, Amy, for popping up the next slide. We are committed to student data privacy, and this is not new to us. This has been uh, a kind of a leading part of our mission, of our software development cycles and everything else for a very long time. So I did just see a question come up with a PowerPoint viewable. Yes, we will send that and the recording afterwards. Thank you, Amy. So again, a lot of words on this page, but what we want to make sure that everybody was comfortable with, that the things required in this to be a technology provider under SB29 are things that are already under practice at Lightspeed. We didn't have to change a single process in order to comply with this.
And we've been ahead of that in so many ways, as Rob said, but a lot of ed tech vendors have not necessarily. So while this requirement is really on the providers, For districts, it might mean some additional layers of vetting and really going deeper on some of those privacy practices and data security practices, which not only is Lightspeed complying with, as all those check marks show, but Digital Insight, if you're using Digital Insight, it provides so much information on those apps and which ones might be risky and which ones are meeting those standards. So we're trying to help there in two different ways, really.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amy. Um, okay. So, this one is a requirement. We've seen this sort of requirement popping up across the country. And so Ohio is a new requirement here, but not new to what we're starting to see. And this requirement that you are notifying the parents of the technology providers that you have contracts with. What are your approved apps? How are they being used? And so the parents can also, look into those vendors and make sure that they are, complying with kind of the things on the last slide as well. So this is another area where Digital Insight can make that easy for you. Thank you. Because with the use of Digital Insight, you do have those approved apps. You can publish that list. The links to the company's privacy policies can be included on that list. And so that is one of the tools that are available to you in our suite that will allow you to meet this part of the compliance, which is you can publish that public list. What are your approved apps? What are their privacy policies? Where are they being used? And that kind of thing.
Well, and over the last couple of days, couple of weeks, with all of this SB29 information out there, we have gotten a ton of interest in Digital Insight for those last two
Yes.
reasons, item number two and item number three there. But item number four is where things start to get really interesting for our other products.
Yes. So this is now we're starting to come into the. I'll let you check that question there, Amy. Prohibits unwanted monitoring of school issue devices. Now, this is probably some of the strictest language we have seen across the country in terms of the use of school devices. There's usually been a pretty strong divide between personal devices and school issue devices, and we've seen. But this bill definitely has some very strict requirements that extend into school-owned devices. So a big part of this is that without prior notice, or and we'll get into this under specific circumstances in a minute. I think this one, again, the prior notice piece, which is covered typically in schools, acceptable use policies or responsible use policies, whichever term you use in your district. And so that is typically something we work with schools long on to include that, the content filtering is in place, the monitoring is in place as part of your RUP or AUP. So I think this is probably something you are already doing. But as we get into the coming slides, we're going to see where there's even more notification requirements that is some new stuff.
Yeah, they make this really interesting. These special
Yeah.
circumstances is one way.
Right. So this is one. And as we look at this and kind of the use of our software. So I'm going to kind of go through our product suite here and how they fall under these circumstances. And this is from conversations we've had with our legal counsel. Obviously, you're going to have your own legal representation. We're happy to, join you in conversations as needed, and pull in the information that we have. But if we look at the use of filtering, web filtering, has been required for schools for a long time under the SIPA requirements. And that really kind of falls under 5 and 6 there. You've got federal law and federal funding that is required to do filtering. And so what we've seen is that, generally that filtering falls under that circumstance. You do the one-time notification and you comply with that. Digital Insight is, according to the interpretations that we have, also falls under this same thing, because now you have SB29, a state law, you have to comply with, and you have to track those approved applications and publish that list and all of that, right? So in order to comply with that state law, a tool like Digital Insight gives you the tools you need to meet that. And so Digital Insight and Filter really fall into that, complying with federal and state requirements. Moving on to Classroom. So Classroom, our tool allows you to monitor what the students are doing and do the screens and kind of lock down in that real-time classroom management piece of it. And that is falling under item 1 here, which is the non-commercial educational purpose for instruction. There's other pieces that we're looking at, specifically the instruction piece. In this case, you'll see that the notification is provided in advance. And so we're going to talk a little bit later about some of the things we have on our roadmap around notifications, some stuff we'd like to get some feedback on. But that's where we see Classroom falling, in that it is a educational purpose for instruction. And we'll talk about those notifications here in a minute. And then finally, we have the alert product. And that's going to fall under item 4, which is to prevent or respond to a threat of life or safety, and the access is limited to that purpose. So, and it has a different set of notification requirements. And so we'll kind of talk about these. So we really have the kind of annual kind of notification that you're probably doing in your AUP. There's the kind of use-based notification in advance that it appears that Classroom is falling under. And then the safety requirement, which has a notification that must go out within 72 hours of that occurring. So we kind of 3 different notifications that we're going to talk through here as we go forward. Okay, so without prior notice, this is really, if you're kind of falling into that safety piece, you need to monitor that student to prevent harm, be prevented, and it does allow you to be preventative. So it isn't just reactive; it does allow for preventative there. But you do have this 72-hour notification requirement. I will tell you, this does specifically talk about webcams and microphones. We do not do that in our software. We've actually long held a policy that we will not do that. There's a whole nother legal thing from a long time ago, for those of you that have been around EdTech as long as me, might be aware of. So we won't do that, never have. Location data is an option within our software. So if you are using that within our tools, you want to make sure that you are complying with the requirements around location data. That is something that can be completely disabled in your software. So if you haven't specifically enabled it, you can be assured that it's not in place. And that will remove the location piece. And that is kind of why we initially built that location piece to be, while it's integrated into our software, it is an explicit act. It's a separate agent that must be installed, so that if it's not in use in your district, you can say that very confidently, that we are not using that location piece of that. So, but then again, if we're in that without that prior notice, we do have a 72-hour notification trigger that the clock starts ticking. So again, 3 different notifications we have to help you with as it goes through this process.
Well, and Rob, a lot of the questions and comments have been around exactly some of the things you touched on, right? Which is if a teacher is using Lightspeed Classroom Management to monitor student activity, would they have to do that 72-hour notice home to the families?
Yes.
If the district is using Lightspeed Alert and they're getting dozens of alerts that they're looking into, does each one of those trigger it?
Yeah, great questions. I think there is a lot that we're going to see. While I think there's a lot of very positive things in this bill, and some things that I understand its intent that it's trying to do, there's some things that I think are going to have to be settled out as it gets into practice, because there's some things that are a little confusing. I mean, as we saw in that initial poll, people going from concerned to confusing and back. I mean, so there's some things that I think we're going to see some more details on, which actually leads me into this in where we're taking our roadmap and working with these notifications wanted to share that with you, get your input as we go forward. So the first is notifications to parents via the parent portal. One of the things that allows you to do, and some of you may or may not be using our parent portal today, but what this will allow us to do is give a centralized location that can house that data. The parent can check anytime, and we can update those notifications within the time requirements that are necessary, and for the different types of notifications, and we can present those to the parents for you in that parent portal. What we're also thinking is including that in the weekly summary that the parent gets, so they'll get a kind of weekly email, and then throughout the week, access to that parent portal will provide them those detailed notifications. So I think, Amy, we got a little poll to get a
Yeah,
question on how people think about that.
let's see if people think that that is a good approach, a reasonable approach that balances that need to notify, but not wanting to send 600 emails a day. And feel free to use the chat as well to add some additional context around your vote here. While people are taking this, Rob, a couple of questions that did come in that might influence an answer. Does the parent portal maintain a notice history?
It will. It does not today. This is new for us, right? This is roadmap item that we are looking at. And I think we have till about October 24th, I think is
24th, yeah.
if I'm
You got a
okay,
whole
if I was
month.
wrong on that date, to get this going for you. But it will maintain that history. So.
And then can parents enroll themselves in the parent portal, or what does that process look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is an area, and as the technology provider, we've had to kind of go through this law quite a bit and meet with our legal counsel. One of the things that Lightspeed has long done is, because we've had parent portal, we've had parents reach out to us for over the course of 25 years. I've had countless requests that have come in, right? That parents come looking for data for various reasons. Our stance has always been and will continue to be that we will provide that to the district. So you are the controllers of that information. You're the owners of it. And you're the ones who know whether the student is or the parent is authorized to have that student's data, not us. So you do upload us a list of the students and the parents associated with them, and that gets the parent portal going. We do maintain the logins, so you don't have to do that. You don't have to do password resets, that kind of stuff. It's all handled through our system. It's all automated. And then they get an email that has a link to the portal. So we cover a lot of those things for you, but you are the controller of the link between the student and the parent. We don't make any assumptions of that unless you have really told us that. Oh, go ahead, Amy.
I was going to share our results here for some general feedback on this. Not many people are saying, no, that doesn't work. A mix between yeses and not sure. And to go just a little bit deeper on this, I think some of the questions and chats that came through highlight some of the reasons for maybe those not sures. One is, this is something we have talked about so much, Rob. What if the alert is an indicator of parent abuse? Like that raises this level of concern, whether you're notifying in the parent portal or a different way.
A different way. Yeah. So actually, I think that takes us directly into the next slide here and talk about where we're looking at going with this. And that is, this is an area that's probably going to cause more unsures, and this is where we're happy to have follow-up conversations with you and your leadership teams and your legal if you want. As well, because this is where it kind of gets into a little more of the gray area of the law and a little things that I think that we will see cleared up over time. But initially, what we are proposing is going to a more generic type notification system. So an example on the classroom side, basically we would put up for all of your students enrolled in classroom in the parent portal 72 hours before a school day, that a student might be monitored. And we have some language that we're still working through our legal, and we'll share it with you as customers as soon as that's available to get your feedback. but kind of a, hey, you're on the school day is 72 hours from now, your student may be monitored for instructional purposes, kind of complying with that pre-notification piece of the law. And so that's what we're proposing to do for classroom. On alert gets really tricky, right? Because, and there's even some stuff about this in the law, but it's still a little gray, I think, and we're going to need some clarity brought to this, and that is around um, if that notification could be harmful to the student, and or maybe yet to be determined. And so, what we're looking at is, and we've our legal has helped us through this, is an interpretation that the triggering event for alert notification is the fact that the machine was monitored, not that an actual alert was actually generated, but that the machine was being monitored that day. And so what we are proposing is, again, kind of leaning more towards that generic notification in if the student was on the school on the machine that day and alert was active, that we will put a notification in the parent portal that your student was monitored today for the purposes of preventing harm, or it'll be a combination kind of similar to that first language, the way the bill was written, of the reasons why. And again, we're still getting our legal review on that. We'll share the specific language of that message, but really the message will be more generic, saying that the monitoring occurred. And that is the direction we're going right now, which I think leads us to the next poll, Amy, that we'd like, kind of your initial thoughts on this. Again, I know we're just kind of dropping this now, and again, we're happy to have further conversations with you as necessary.
So does what Rob described there with generic notifications seem to meet the needs here? We have a lot of people in the chat, Rob, talking about the legal advice they have gotten, and they've, been
Mm-hmm.
talking to district lawyers or reaching out. And as you can imagine from all of the research you have done, there's a lot of gray area here,
That's a lot
right?
of gray. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so that's
So
why we're happy to help you, and have, if you want, you can reach out to me. If my contact information isn't in the slide deck, we'll make sure we include it in the email that's going out. I'm Rob C at Lightspeed Systems. Many of you probably already have my email address. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me. We're happy to participate in those calls and share, and kind of looking at these poll results.
I'm gonna
I
end
think
it
this,
here. There you
yeah,
go.
looks, not sure at 70%. I would think that's probably fair. A few at the nose, and again, happy to talk through those. Some at the yeses, but not sure. I think aligns with where we would expect most people to be right now, because the lack of clarity in some of those areas in the bill that we believe will be resolved in the time going forward, which is kind of our approach, and our recommendation is we're going to start more generic, so that as that gets resolved, we can add the specifics as required, rather than going to a very specific message and having to back off to
Right.
something as that clarity comes. So.
Well, and Rob, a lot of the chat comments are around what if the alert was really a homework situation where a student was
Mm-hmm.
researching guns or weapons, it triggers an alert. A parent doesn't have the full context that our safety specialists do or that a district does, and it creates panic. So we don't want that,
Right.
right? That's a reason for these
That's why we're
generic
starting
alerts,
with that more
probably.
generic messages. Exactly. Yes.
On the flip side, someone has commented here that there's a section in SB 29 that there must be a resolution involved in the notification. How have your lawyers advised around that?
So yeah, it kind of goes, and we could probably get into some more specifics of that, in that, in if we take the interpretation that the triggering event is the monitoring of the machine, then we are notifying that the machine was monitored. And so that you're not getting into the specifics of the case, the resolution of the case, and that kind of thing. Again, we're leaning more towards that more generic message. Those certainly may change going forward, um, as more things come into clarity around this. But the kind of leaning towards that more generic is the machine was monitored, and kind of leaving it at that.
Any feedback on that? Come on through in the chat. Rob, I think that when we go back through this and look really closely at each chat comment, you're going to get some parent portal roadmap ideas to make
Mhm.
all of this easier. Can you talk a little bit about the plans for SysSync or simplification of getting parents in there?
Yeah, so we're if you have used the parent portal already, it is it has been a manual upload in the past. That is converting to an automated upload, so that you can pull that from your sys automatically and upload that to us and get it in the system. So it will take away that manual step, and ease that workflows considerably. So that's definitely something that's in the works right now, and something that we expect to have in place as we work with you towards compliance on this.
Mhm. Well, and as expected, some of the concerns around this generic idea. One is if you notify that the machine or account was monitored, that's sort of your event, it
Mhm.
might force us to reach back out and notify what happened to comply with the law. I'm not sure we want this either, the commenter says.
Yeah. So one of the things, and I appreciate all these comments, we're going to take these, which is really the reason I want to do this webinar this morning, is one, share with you what we're thinking, but also this feedback is perfect for us. We're going to take this. We'll meet with our legal. We're going to put together some documents based on the feedback we have here. And some of you I might be reaching out to ask some more specific questions. And then we'll share that back out with the group, because I think this is all, we're all trying to do our best to comply with this. And So we're going to take all this feedback, like I said, and we'll produce back a document back to you, with some FAQs and some responses to this kind of thing. And again, we're happy to um, join you in conversations with the rest of your leadership teams as you look to comply with us, sharing any information that we have. So
Well, and we're going to take all of these comments. We'll create FAQs. We'll create a lot of content. We'll be following up to help everyone through this over the next month. But Rob, like you see in the comments here, what am I going to do about classrooms starting in a month? What am I going to do about alert? All of these customers using Lightspeed solutions. What's sort of a summary uh, comment you can leave them with?
yeah, I think that the first thing, if you haven't done it already, is the kind of annual notification that's kind of required as part of AUP, RUP. I think that is something clear that everybody should be doing. Um, I would, if you're using Classroom or Alerts, it's probably um, something that you should be notifying your parent communities on, that hey, we use this tool, that you're working with your vendor on compliance. We know we're very aware of the October 24th date and notifications, but um, if you're using a tool like Digi, and you haven't done your approved app lists, this is probably a good time to start jumping in there and getting those approved app lists and those public lists available. So while we do have a month to go, those are kind of the steps I would be taking.
Great advice there. Thank you, Rob. As kind of a final comment here, we're here to help. This is what we do every day is listen to districts, find out what they need, help them comply with these regulations. Rob and the team will continue working with our legal advisors on this. We will continue talking to districts and we will continue sharing out information over the next month to go from this confused, maybe not sure, to feeling really confident about the path forward. So we appreciate you joining us here this morning. I'm going to stay here and just give you a minute to add any other questions into the chat or into the question box, because even though we're out of time here today, we will be following up. We will get those questions answered. Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone. Closing out, I will say I did see one question: is the parent portal a paid add-on? And the parent portal is included with your license, so that is not
Nice,
something that
easy
will be a
question.
separate
I
pay.
love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, for clarity there, Parent Portal is a part of Filter. If you have our Filter, you have Parent Portal.
Yeah. It'll be added to Classroom and Alert. as part of the in the coming days. That's part of work that's going on.
All right, I think we've trickled off here in the chat. Thank you all so much for joining us. We look forward to sharing more with you over the next few weeks. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.